Join Paranormal M, where every tale brings you closer to the eerie and the extraordinary. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications for weekly updates. Are you ready to uncover the truth? I brought my two sons rape whistles to wear, and today they actually used it to alert me in a very alarming situation. So my stepsons are 7 and 10. They play with 5 other boys in our area which are similar age. They all go to the same school in our neighborhood. Now there's a police station in our neighborhood, and we live in a city that is large, but we feel very safe here and have almost zero crime around us, so when they want to go to the park to play with friends, husband and I agree it's okay. They'll be gone for hours, going from house to house, swimming, jumping on the trampoline, scootering, skateboarding. Sometimes they're all just at my house in the pool. It's a good system. I'm in texting with other parents, etc., so we have a pretty safe system. However, our state has been known for human trafficking because we're close enough to the border. It's just something I worry about. So I bought them bright orange rape whistles and tied them to their backpacks, and sometimes they all ride bikes to school together. At home, I'd taught them each to blow into the whistle as hard as they could so they knew how loud it was, and to only use it for emergencies, which we've discussed emergency situations before. Today on break from school, the kids wanted to do a lemonade stand. Something in my gut told me to say no, that's not a good idea, even though they had their own little garage sale around Christmas to make money to buy gifts, and the neighborhood thought it was so cute that they actually got a ton of donations and made very good money. I don't have any worries that time, and today was different for me, though. As my older stepson was making his signs, I reminded him about interacting with strangers, and he needs to watch his brother, so he asks me, should I bring my whistle? I said yes, great idea. I took it off his backpack and put it around his neck and told him I'm going to leave the window open. If you feel scared or if something happens, you blow that whistle like there's no tomorrow. I'll run outside. They were right in our street corner of our neighborhood, right where the main street through our neighborhood is, so it's a decent amount of cars going by. An hour or so goes by and I'm into a documentary, and that's when I hear that fucking whistle. My stomach drops and I dash outside to see a flashy red car. It's like a Charger, I believe, and I was looking and running toward the kids, and so I wasn't paying really close enough attention to the car, but I immediately see all the kids are accounted for. That's as the guy is getting back into his car, and my older son tells me our younger son, who really likes cars, as does his dad, he goes to the car shows and knows so much about cars. Husband has a GTR from Japan and another racing type car that they work on together, but the man in the car got out and was talking to them, asking them their ages, and invited my younger son to get into his car. I literally told my older son earlier, do not get into or near anyone's cars. So he said he didn't feel safe anymore and blew that whistle as hard as he could. My son said the car was what's known as a demon, which I believe is a Dodge Charger Red. That's what my son told the police. Got a good look at the guy at least, but didn't get the plates. He was getting into his car as I was making sure the kids were accounted for and pounded the fuck out of the hood, just asking him, why would you invite a child into your car? That was before he drove away. I wasn't really thinking clearly, and I was in a bit of a panic, so I didn't get the plates. I was right there. I'm so pissed at myself for that, but the kids were all talking and just went to the protective mode and called the police. The police said they searched our entire neighborhood for the car and put out a description of the guy and the car, and with the now possibly dented hood for me, and they put out an alert and are taking this very seriously, as they said. So at least there's that. I'm so thankful for that $10 whistle I ordered on Amazon. Sometimes you just know when shit's about to go down. Still so shaken up about it, and all the kids and parents are super concerned, and we have a community website, and we posted about our encounter on the website for other parents to be aware of as well. I don't know for certain that the guy was up to no good, but if he wasn't, why leave so suddenly, I don't know, my view on safety has been wrecked and it's going for quite a while for things to feel okay again, I think. Make sure your kids have a plan for emergencies, and they have intuitions also, and there's just something about that gut feeling you shouldn't ignore. It amazes me sometimes. That was not paranormal, Senor Producer. A very paranormal day. About 10 years ago, I shared a house in a small town in Texas with a couple, a man and his wife. They were good friends having financial problems, and I was too. So we decided they'd move in and help with the mortgage payments. One day I came home from work, and the couple's car was gone. So I knew they weren't home, and I was in the living room rummaging through my purse from when behind me, I hear Mike, the husband, ask, "What are you doing?" I thought, oh, they are home. I turned around and found no one there. That was odd. I figured he must have quickly left the living room. I searched the house, and I was the only one there. Later that evening, Mike had a severe asthma attack. His wife rushed him out to the car to take him to the ER and asked if I would meet her there because they would probably keep him for the night. Shortly after they left, I headed for the hospital. By now, it's about 10 p.m. and I had to take a dark, lonely highway. On the highway, I look up in time to see that I'm passing under 3 big red lights in a triangle formation hovering right over my car. My quick impression at the moment was that they were attached to maybe a single aircraft of some sort. The really odd thing was I saw no craft as I approached or left it. Only big red lights directly under. Strange day. The Jefferson Hotel. In 2001, I was big into ghost hunting. I was looking online for a haunted weekend road trip destination and came across the Jefferson Hotel in Jefferson, Texas. About the only thing it said was that room 19 was uninhabitable. Now that really piqued my interest, so I called them up and asked if it was true. She laughed and said, "No, we book that room all the time." So I reserved it. So excited, but didn't really think anything would happen. I'd been to several supposed haunted hotels and B&Bs and nothing. No, I'm not sensitive like other people. I always hear people say I felt like something was watching me, or I have no idea what that means. Only thing I noticed when I walked into the room was a faint, musky smell of an old-fashioned perfume. Set up a recorder in the room and headed out to explore the town. It was like going back in time. If you live in Texas, you're looking for a road trip, and I highly recommend Jefferson. When I got back to the room, I turned off the recorder and looked out its one window to see a large bust of Thomas Jefferson in the courtyard. I then sat on the bed to relax and watch some TV. After a bit, something caused me to look back up at the window. I saw something. I saw a red smudge on the glass, and I just frowned, and I got up to see what it was. I hadn't noticed any red smudges earlier, and I looked closely, and it was more like a streak of red and a greasy substance of some sort. Then I noticed more streaks, and then more, and gradually began to realize that these were letters. My heart began to race as I backed up to take it all in. These streaks of red were spelling out, "Help me." Kinda just collapsed on the bed, and my heart was still racing. I knew without a doubt in my mind those letters were not there 15 minutes earlier. I just sat there in disbelief for about 5 minutes. Needless to say, there was not much sleep to be had that night, and as I left the hotel the next morning, I was disappointed to see that there was no one behind the desk. I really needed to talk to someone. Left a note about the writing and said I'd call them on Monday. When I called, I told the woman who answered who I was, and she said, "Hold on just a moment." She put the housekeeping lady on the phone, and I asked, "Did you see it?" She said, "Yeah, I saw it." She said, "Just before you arrived, I raised the blinds and turned on the AC. There was no writing, and the strangest thing was as I attempted to clean it off. She said it was like the letters had been engraved into the glass." I said, "I'm freaked out." She said, "I am too." And by the way, on the way home, I listened to the tape, and I had running in the room there while I was gone. And what I heard was the sound of the closet door angrily slamming several times, then some sounds of shuffling around. But what really got to me was the sound of a woman sobbing. Did my dad contact my mom after death? My dad passed away on the 19th of May in 2020. He was the best man I ever met. He and my mom were high school sweethearts and were married 64 years. Never spent more than a couple of days apart in all that time. Needless to say, Mom was not only broken-hearted when he passed, but very lost. On Memorial Day, I was staying with her when I heard her in the living room wailing. I rushed in to find her bent over as if in pain. I ran to her and asked what was wrong. She couldn't speak, she just handed me her old flip phone. I looked at her and I asked what. She finally was able to say that Dad had left her 3 voicemails that were dated today, May 25th. Voicemail number 1 said, "Call me back." Voicemail number 2, "Call me back, please." Voicemail number 3, "Would you call me?" Well, shucky dern. That's one of his sayings. Now, after his initial heart attack, he survived, and he went on in the hospital for about a month. The longest they'd ever been separated. Mom couldn't visit him because of COVID, so they'd just talk on the phone a lot. Her old flip phone would sometimes just arbitrarily send calls straight to voicemail, but it would then notify her that she had a voicemail. He got to come home briefly, but his body just began shutting down, and Mom had to call an ambulance for him. Passed away that morning, May 19th. My skeptical mind still tries to think that it must have been some sort of phone glitch that held onto those voicemails that he may have left her while he was in the hospital and maybe released them a month later, maybe. And it would date them May 25th. I don't know. The other side of me really wants to believe it was Dad reaching out to her and let her know he was, really left her. Either way, it's pretty weird and also pretty sweet. I feel my flatmate is bringing back something from work. So I'll start this off by me saying that before moving into this apartment, I never experienced anything paranormal. Never had sleep paralysis. Never felt this creeped out. I'm 21 and I share an apartment with this guy who's in his 40s and works as a nurse. So ever since moving into this place, I started experiencing very realistic dreams that blend into reality. The dreams always involve this apartment. And many times they also involve the energy of the guy I live with. I never see him in the dreams, but I can feel it. And this in and of itself is odd, as I always used to dream about my hometown and places that are dear to my heart. The first dream happened in the room I sleep. In the dream, I was in the present moment, trying to sleep on my bed. And I started hearing people walking around the house. At the start, I thought it was the guy, but soon I remembered that he's abroad for a week, so it can't be him. I just go underneath my covers to hide, and then I start feeling something pulling my legs and my blanket. I'm getting dragged off the bed, and I look up and I see 2 figures. One looked white and very flowy, almost like somebody had a white sheet over their head, and the other was black and more slim. I sat up screaming, and as I just woke up as a result, when my eyes opened, I looked in the exact location where I was looking last in my dream. The second situation, I'm not even sure if it was a dream or not. It was around midnight when I tried to fall asleep. Laying on my side in the bed with most of my head covered, I start to feel like something sitting on top of my legs at the end of the bed. And again, here I felt the energy for the guy I live with, and I don't know why. While this is happening, I hear a whisper in my ear. Couldn't make out what it was, but in this moment I got angry and cursed in my own language, covered my head with my blanket and fell asleep. Today I went to sleep and I had a crazy dream again. I was in the bathroom of this apartment and one of my idols was there. I had a weird spray in my hand similar to like a cleaning product bottle, and I banished some type of entity that was sitting in the bathtub by spraying it. However, there was a second entity in the corner of the bathroom, but it went out of my vision. When I decided that I'm going to spray this one, it went completely dark in the dream, and I was confused not knowing where I'm spraying at. I woke up to me making noises and having my armpit tickled, and it was 4:30 a.m. I decided to try to go back to sleep, but I was just too warm, and around 5:40 a.m. felt like my legs were being slowly pulled again. It was subtle and slow, and I realized and started kicking and then gave up on falling asleep. There were also other weird situations, but less intense. Overall, sometimes I feel uneasy here, but most of the time it's good until I have a dream or a situation like this. What could this be? And why do I picture this guy, this nurse guy, looking like Weird Al Yankovic in the 80s or 90s? What the heck's wrong with me? What does he look like? Ghost or vision? This happened when I was 12. It's always freaked me out. Never been able to figure it out either. Spending the summer at my grandma's, and she lived in the country surrounded by cornfields. My great-uncle Juice, spelled with a G-U-I-S-E, but pronounced like juice, also lived there, and he was really old, about 80 probably. His bedroom was the room across the hall from the one that I used. Anyway, this particular week he was staying at one of my grandma's and my sister's houses. So we'd gone about 2 days. Well, it was in the middle of the night and I was awoken by the sound of shuffling slippers on the tile floor and the creak of a door. I looked toward the hallway and it was pretty dark and all I could see was a little bit of light from the window in the room across the hall. But I saw and I heard my Uncle Juice come out of his room, start walking down the hall toward the kitchen. He was mumbling, which was a common thing he did, and got up to follow him because sometimes he would roam the house at night and fall down. Never occurred to my sleepy brain that he wasn't home, though. So I go out into the hall, and he's turning into the kitchen. When I get down there to the kitchen, he's not there, but there's a small sort of like when you blow out a candle. And at this time, I noticed the oven clock says 2:49 a.m. I just go back to bed thinking I guess I was dreaming it. The next morning, my grandma gets a phone call, and Uncle Juice had died in his sleep at my great-aunt's house. Not only that, but he was discovered dead at 3 a.m. by my great-aunt, who had woken up suddenly with the thought I need to go check on my brother. This totally freaked me out because I remembered my experience at 2:49 a.m. Told my grandma about it, and she said the soul probably passed through. That's because this was his home, and I'm still freaked out about this 23 years later. Like, did I see a ghost? I think was molested by something in my house. I'm terrified and need help. Little background for context. I lived in a house as a child that my family's always referred to as haunted. Things like doors slamming shut, disturbing noises, and a shadowy figure, they're pretty constant during the year we stayed there. After moving out, though, I never felt like anything followed us. Haven't had another paranormal experience until last night. I was taking a shower and under the impression that my husband would be coming up shortly for some spooky adult activities, based on an exchange that we had just 10 minutes before. Anyways, as I'm washing my face, I feel my husband's hand reach around the shower curtain and slide his fingers in between my butt cheeks, literally touch my asshole. I screamed because I was startled, but I knew it was my husband, so I wasn't exactly scared. I peeked through the shower curtains and didn't see him. So I assumed he was hiding in the closet right next to the shower, waiting for me to come find him. As I was just about to peek into the closet, my husband ran into the bathroom asking if I was okay because he'd heard me scream from his office downstairs. The second I saw him, a deep sense of dread washed over me and I completely lost it. I dropped to the floor, naked, and basically glued myself to a corner while I screamed. My husband was able to get me up and help me down the stairs to get to our living room, and during that entire time it felt like something was watching me. It took hours for my heart to rate to just get back to normal. Even after I'd taken an anxiety pill and calmed down quite a bit, I'd never been so terrified in my entire 29 years. I'm at a loss. We've owned this house for 2.5 years. Never experienced anything even remotely strange. Does anybody have any advice or just some comforting words? So fucking scared and I don't feel safe in my home anymore. I don't have any advice other than I see why you're alarmed. The ghost woman who follows me and brothers, my relationship partner. I was always aware about the ghosts here in our house, but I want to tell you guys about a specific ghost that has been following me. A little background on me. I am now 26 years old, I'm bisexual and a working individual. I live with my parents in a 1-floor townhouse. I do not have any siblings. I am a closeted bisexual, so my parents don't know about me being gay, so I would usually introduce my ex-girlfriends as my best friends. The first girl I brought home was my college classmate. My parents grew fond of her, so she would be in my house frequently, overnights and all. And at first, everything was fine, then one day we video chatted through Skype with her little brother. I used my computer in our living room so you can see the whole living room through my camera. We were joking with each other, and when she said, "Where's your mom going?" I was confused, so I asked, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, she just went out of the door behind you." I laughed and said, "What are you talking about? I'm the only one inside the house." I thought she was messing with me as she was aware about the ghosts in her house. Her face turned pale and she looked at her little brother. She asked her little brother if he saw a woman went by behind me. He said, "Yeah." Then she kept telling me she was serious, and I shouldn't be messing with her like that. I told her that there's no one else in my house because they went to their church gathering. She said it looked like my mom, and she swears she's not lying as her little brother saw it too. We ended the call shortly after because she was so freaked out apparently. I really wasn't though, because ever since I was a kid, they'd been making me feel their presence, and I shrugged it off, thinking it must just be another doppelganger. Next few weeks, I think we had our physics class on the 4th floor. It was our last class for the day, and it was around 6:30 p.m. roughly, so it was dark outside. It was a lab with a huge glass wall overseeing the middle of our school campus. It reflects a little bit when you look at the glass since it was dark outside and we had lights inside the room on. It's hard to explain. Not really. Anyways, she was toying with my hair while waiting for our professor to get back from getting the lab materials for her lesson, so she stopped. I asked why. She said she saw a woman right behind me when she looked at our reflection on the glass. It was a split second though, so we didn't think much of it. Months passed, and we broke up eventually. When I was finally working, I met another woman and we got together. I'd bring her to my house too, but not that frequent as she lives quite far from my house. On one occasion, wherein she stayed in my house, she was silent when we were eating. I asked her if there was something wrong, but she said that she'll just tell me once we're back in my bedroom. And when we finished eating, we went back to my room. I asked her again. She told me that there was a woman peeking at us while we were eating. She was standing maybe 2 meters away from the dining room table and near the stove. She saw her for a few seconds, but long enough to describe her to me. She said it was a woman dressed in white with wavy hair. Her description fits the woman who's been haunting my dreams when I was a kid. Next encounter was when I was taking a bath. Before I went to take a bath, she was begging me to hurry up, so I said I won't be long. Took a bath as fast as I can so she wouldn't worry. She told me that hanging lock on my bedroom door swung so hard even though there was no fan or wind blowing. It was so hard that it wasn't usual. She said it stopped when I came back from the shower. And there's also a counter when we were in the office. She was a trainer, so she was having a meeting with her co-trainer, one of the rooms. When they were talking, they were facing the opposite of the door. The door opened, so they looked, towards it, and they saw a woman going out of the room, which makes no sense because they were the only ones inside the room. The sliding door was heavy, so they would have heard if somebody went in. It was the same woman, white clothes, wavy hair. I only saw that woman inside my dreams and always mad at me. I had inception dreams, sort of dreams within a dream, a lot of them. It would take a lot of effort to get out. She would hold my arm so hard and pull me toward I don't know where, but I'd always resist inside my dream. I don't know who she is, really, and she's been bothering whoever my partner is. Not only inside my house, but in my previous school and in my office. I have a story I've been wanting to share on Reddit for a long time. I wanted to share a haunting which I experienced for almost 10 years between the ages of 11 and 19 or 20. I remember sharing this story on r/NoSleep when I first discovered Reddit, thinking posts were real in there. And now that I discovered this subreddit, I'd love to share my story. The hauntings don't happen often, it's few and far in between, and some are intense, but nothing bad happens except for one time. So let's start off with the layout, because it plays into the story a bit. When you walked in the house, there was the living room with the basement door and a very small hallway and the bathroom door next to it. Now, between the two doors were steps that led to the second floor. Walking up, you were in the kitchen, and immediately to the right was another living room and another set of steps leading to the top floor. At the top of these steps, my bedroom was directly in front of the steps, and my sister was to the left, and to the right was my mom and her ex-boyfriend's room. There was like another bathroom there. Now, with this bathroom light on, it was like a night light for my sister and I. Now, my first experience. My mom had just gotten into Michael Jackson back in 2003 when she got me his #1 hits record. I had a 6-CD stereo with a remote in my room. Fell asleep listening to music. One night I was listening and Thriller was on, and this had the Vincent Price ending. And at the end of the song, a door squeaks when it's closing. My closet was almost an entire wall, and it was 2 sliding doors. Well, the song ended, and I saw one of my closet doors push out and close, making a similar sound. I ran downstairs, told my mom and her ex, and they assured me it was just my mind playing tricks on me. Walked up to my room with me, checked the closet, and put me back to bed. A couple of months later, I'm laying in my bed trying to get sleep, and I used to keep my bedroom door open for the light from the bathroom. But my mom and her ex got me a lava lamp since they were trying to lower the light a bill, I guess, or at least I assume that. Lava lamps use a lot, but anyway. It's around 12:30 and it's a school night. My lava lamp is on and my stereo is playing a local radio station at a low volume. I'm staring at my door, and right as I start to drift asleep, I saw a figure walk through my door. It had a pink aura and it wasn't bright. I knew it was a lady and she was a bit on the heftier side. Her looks sort of play into my story. I could tell from her facial features she was a middle-aged black lady. She was walking slowly toward me, and I was frozen in fear. So I put the blankets over my head and kept them there the rest of the night. I fell asleep at one point, waking up to my alarm clock. Never told my mom or boyfriend about this experience, and I was very reluctant to tell my mom's boyfriend because he always came off as one to chalk such things up to my imagination. My second experience was quite a while later. I was maybe 18. I was in my room watching Step Brothers. I hear a slight knock, and I had no idea if it was the movie or not. I thought it could have been my sister or mom wanting to come in and talk or something. I rewound the movie, and I heard no knock, so I opened my door. And I saw the ghost again. She was at the bottom of the steps and was turning the corner to go downstairs. I wasn't scared, for at this point I had been really into the paranormal and she meant no harm, or at least so I thought. A couple of months after this, my friend came over and we're all in my room talking about paranormal things when ghosts come up. I tell her my experience and start stupidly mocking the ghost I had seen twice. I say she won't come out and to show herself, that she's too scared to do something and so on. My friend leaves and I go back to bed at some point. Wake up the next day with a scratch that starts from my right ankle around my leg and up to my inner thigh. My leg was really sore. The line was perfectly intact, and there's no way I could have done this in my sleep. I pondered on what it could be, and can vividly remember looking around my room and saying, "I'm sorry for mocking you, I won't do that again." Those three experiences are pretty far apart, but between them I've had some unexplained stuff happen. Our house phones illuminate at night, and at one point the upstairs bathroom toilet didn't flush. Walking down the steps into the kitchen and downstairs to use that bathroom, I can look to see the time in the phone as I'm walking in the bathroom. I can remember it was between 3:30 and 3:45. I was in the bathroom for a while, and when I walk out, I go to check the time in the phone. But it wasn't on the charger. It was about 7 feet away on a table. I could chalk it up to my mom or maybe her ex because they sleep in the living room, but they rarely ever woke up through the night, and even if so, why grab the phone that late? The TV was off, so I'd hear if they were up, and I've heard steps in my room downstairs. Table, chairs, not in the same spot, just seconds after seeing them in another spot. Even had my first and only, so far, sleep paralysis experience, which was nothing too horrifying. Just unable to move, breathe, and open my eyes for about 15 seconds. No shadows or figures. We had 2 dogs. One stayed inside, one stayed outside in the garage. And there's times the inside one would sort of stop what he was doing and just stare at a wall or a corner. Sometimes he'd bark, sometimes he'd give a low growl. My mom worked at a college for a long time. There was a foreign exchange student from the UK, and we became very close with. He'd stay with us pretty often. Well, my mom's ex, the student, and I were watching The Exorcist and got to talking about stuff. And by this time, I didn't care what my mom's ex really thought of my experiences. Told them the things that have happened. And as I'm explaining, I don't go into detail about the ghost outside that had the pink aura. My mom's ex kept asking if it was a black lady on the heavier side. And at one point I told him yes and finished my story, and when I finished, I told him that he probably doesn't believe me. And he said he did believe me. What he said next sent chills down my spine, just as I have now typing this. He said that he was good friends with the former house owner. He got it way before we moved in. The former house owner died in the living room after having a heart attack. He purchased the house soon after her untimely death, and he told her her name was Ernestine, and that she had pink curtains, a pink rug for her favorite color was pink. I never doubted or put my experiences off to my imagination because I've had some odd things happen at my grandma's house before we moved in with my mom's ex, but this sold me that the house was being watched over by her, and she had taken a liking to me, despite mocking her that one time. I I saw something on my way home from work that scared me half to death. Before I tell you my story, I'm going to give you some context about my drive home from work, the state I live in, and all that. This happened about 10 minutes after I left work today, July 4th, 2020. I live in Northeast Ohio. I got a new job about 2 months ago as a process technician at a dairy plant. It pays very good money, considering it's a 35 mile drive one way. After about 20 or 25 miles, I drive through a wooded area. Nothing uncommon for me. I live in Northeast Ohio, and forests are common. I pretty much lived in one behind my grandma's house growing up anyway. I work 4 p.m. to 4 a.m., and the drive home sucks. Whether it's being tired, hungry, or the fog almost every night, I go the same way every day and night. I was driving my way home, and I just left the residential area of my workplace. I was going through that forested area. And as I said, there's almost fog every night. So, I'm on high alert for deer and raccoons and such critters. It's just like every other drive home so far. I have a podcast on, focusing on the road, thinking of getting either a sausage McMuffin or a McGriddle from McDonald's. Sometimes looking off to the side of the road for my eyes reflecting off my headlights. And all of a sudden, I see some reflecting eyes. It's out of the woods. There comes a coyote. And in my hometown, coyotes aren't too rare. I've seen them by my high school. Never seen them outside of my hometown, though, so it surprised me. I start slowing down as it crosses the road until it turns to my car and sits in the road. It's at about 10 feet from my car. There had been no cars I'd seen since living in the residential area, so I was going to go around it. I thought it was odd thing to happen to just drive away from it. I expected it to just get up and walk away at any given second. And this is where I began to get very scared. I honked my horn, and after about 2 or 3 seconds, it smiles at me. I have my brights on so I can see it perfectly. This coyote had human-shaped teeth. My heart dropped and every hair in my body raised. Just as it's now recalling this incident, it lasted 1 second before sitting up and running into the woods. Sat there in fear for about 5 seconds before shoving my foot on the pedal and driving at getaway speed. I didn't stop and get food because I had and still have no appetite. I thought the rest of the ride home what I saw, and I was once doubting I even saw it, but like I said, with my brights on and as close as my car as it was, I saw it clear as day. This coyote had human teeth, and there was no doubt about it. I'm very into the paranormal, and that includes cryptids. Is it possible I ran into a skinwalker or some genetically mutated coyote? I'm Native American, if that counts for anything. So weird typing this out that I'd like somebody who knew more about these things to help out if they can. I know one thing, though, and that's I'm finding a new way to work. I was haunted in a house I'd lived in for 12 years, and had some interesting experiences. Back in 2000 and 2001, my mom moved my sister and I in with her boyfriend at the time. I was 8 or 9, my sister was 4 or 5, and everything was great. It was a 3-story house with a finished basement, and on the top floor were the bedrooms. Standing in my bedroom's doorway, you could see down over the landing and down the steps. Additionally, going down the steps from the 3rd floor and turning left led to a set of steps leading down from the 2nd floor to the 1st floor and into our living room. When I was in 5th grade, I woke up at around 1 in the morning on a school night. I sat up to stretch, looked at my clock, then immediately looked toward my door. I saw a pink apparition walk through my door, which was closed, and very slowly walked toward me. Having deja vu. Before I could be scared, I noticed that she looked like an older black lady. This is very important. I really read this already. Well, they're going to yell at me if I don't read it, so oh well. Second time's the charm. Let me just really double check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, okay. Whatever. So I saw this pink apparition walk through my door, which was closed, and very slowly walked toward me. Before I could be scared, I noticed that she looked like an older black lady. I dove under my covers and was up for the rest of the night. I never told anybody what happened to me for a long time. Not my sister, mom, especially her boyfriend, who didn't want to tell because he always came off as somebody who had an explanation for everything and had very logical thinking. That experience led me to researching ghosts, paranormal activity, aliens, cryptids, and so on. It was an eye-opening experience. And after my experience happened, objects would move, but would do so when no one was looking. Phones would be on the hook 1 minute and all the way across the room the next. Kitchen chairs would be pushed out when they were all pushed in, and no one being in the kitchen, like stuff in my room would be missing and I'd find them in the basement. These happened when I was alone and with others in the house. My family thought nothing of it, but I thought it was a ghost. My sophomore year, I had my best friend over to hang out. We got to talking about ghosts and all things paranormal. When I mentioned I had a ghost, this was my first confession of having a ghost, but never mentioned what happened yeets prior. Foolishly, I mocked the ghost, demanding to move objects, saying that she was scared and so on. My best friend visited and went fine. Everything was fine that night, and I went up to bed late without a hiccup to my day or night. I woke up the next morning and felt a burning sensation on my leg, which had a scratch mark from the inside of my ankle wrapped twice around my leg up and up my inner thigh. I apologized in my room out loud, and within the next few days the scratch was completely gone. No sign of scarring or sign of previous injury. I'm going to jump to the summer leading to my senior year, which was the next time I saw the apparition. I was in my bedroom watching Step Brothers very late at night. That's when I heard a knock on my door. My sister's room was right next to mine, so I thought it was her and called out. Got no answer. So I rewound the movie to see if the knock was in the movie, and it wasn't. Unlocked my door, opened it up, and my eyes fell upon the same pink apparition who looked exactly like she did when I was in 5th grade. But she was walking down the steps. Turned the corner to go to the living room. I went to go follow her, but instead just closed my door and smiled and went to bed. At this point, I was fine with having her around, and I'd just kind of talk out loud to her when alone, but not mock her. We'd get cold spots in the house when the rest of the room was room temperature. We'd hear footsteps from the room sometimes, and to my knowledge at that time, no one in the house had any other experience like I had, so I kept my story to myself. I will say that that was the last time I had seen the ghost or had a paranormal experience outside of the footsteps and things being out of place. I moved shortly after because my grandpa died and moved in with my grandma. Honestly, though, I thought I was crazy. I always questioned myself about my experiences until the summer I graduated and made it all come together. My mom worked at a college and knew a lot of students. We got close with a student from the UK and invited him to our house to hang out often. He was like an older brother to me. And one night, my mom's boyfriend, him, and I talked about ghosts. And that's when I finally told my story. After finishing my story, my mom's boyfriend told me he believed me and asked if I was, or rather, if it was... Believed me and asked if it was because he had any experiences. He told me that when the house was up for sale, he'd become good friends with the owner, whose name was Ernestine. And while they were in the middle of the sale, Ernestine had sadly died. Her family finished the purchase of the house to him, and he helped them move everything out so he could move in. He told me that Ernestine had died in the living room of the house. and she was an older black lady whose favorite color was pink. She had pink decorations, curtains, and rugs, just a whole lot of pink. I remember getting chills I never had before when he told me, and he even told an experience he had at his childhood home, which was of him levitating from his bed all the way up to the ceiling and being dropped face first onto his bed. His dad still lived in that house, and we stayed the night there sometimes. The house always felt creepy to me even before I knew of the story. I think Ernestine wanted to show herself and help to be released to the other side, but why she chose me? I think me being a kid at the time helped, but my sister told me she had no experiences outside of, again, things being misplaced. Not too long after that, I left the house and never kept in touch with my mom's boyfriend, who's now her ex, because my mom and sister moved to Kentucky and I live in Ohio. But not too long after I moved in with my grandma. It's a very important event to me because it opened my eyes to a whole other world. I still think about Ernestine, hoping she found peace and is well off. I think an entity saved our lives the other day. Was driving through Coconino? I was driving through Coconino National Forest last week on the way to the Grand Canyon with my boyfriend. It was around 12 or 1 a.m. and I was just chillaxing, playing my Switch while he drove us down the forest. Suddenly he jumps and yells, "What the fuck?" Clearly he was very startled. I asked what was wrong, and he said he saw a lady standing on the side of the road pointing to the other side. Apparently, he thought he saw something up the road and turned on the high beams, illuminating the woman. Without contemplating it too much, I looked to where he said the woman was pointing, and out of the bushes steps a massive bull elk with a few females behind him. We had to swerve hard to dodge him in time. Had I just been playing the Switch and not seen them, we likely would have smashed right into what might be a brick wall. So then I started to think about it and realized we were deep in the part of the forest where there's no marked campsites and no inhabited dwellings. And while it's not entirely impossible to assume that somebody on the road is a camper, the way she apparently just appeared out of nowhere and was deliberately pointing to where the hidden elk were, the only car likely within 30 miles, just seemed strange. What's interesting is that my boyfriend is super in touch with the paranormal. He's just more susceptible to energies or whatever they are. Like he often feels or sees presences going about their old routines. He's apparently regularly been seeing these ghosts since a little kid. And this isn't him doing an attention-grabbing thing. He didn't tell me about his paranormal sensitivity until we had been dating for a few months, and only after that elk incident. I'm curious if it was specifically a guardian spirit for us or just a presence that was trying to help us as we passed. Random aside, if paranormal stuff is your hobby, you'd fucking love this house. There's a presence there that the family calls Ghosty, who manifests herself as a young woman. It was funny because he casually mentioned one time that his house was haunted and all the friends and family were 100% aware of it. Apparently, she loves pranking people, turning over mirrors, knocking on walls, and hiding keys, and frequently can be seen in mirrors. When I brought it up with his family the first time I walk over there, they were like, "Oh yeah, Ghosty gets bored, and you'll probably meet her sooner or later." And no joke, that very night my boyfriend and I woke up to a muffled crash. Like a lightweight mattress that was securely stored against the wall for the last several months had been decidedly dislodging itself and falling on top of our very drunk friend sleeping on the floor. Had to have been Ghosty messing with our friend because there's simply no way the mattress could have fallen unless pushed. Feeling a presence. Looking for opinions on an experience I myself had around 10 years ago. At the time, my mother was living in a 2-bedroom flat with her partner. I was staying in the spare room. Several times in the morning before work or late into the evening while making coffee in the kitchen, I felt the sensation of somebody standing behind me in the doorway. I could feel their eyes burning into the back of my head, but when I turned around, I was alone. At first, I thought I was overreacting, but the feeling only became more intense on a daily basis. I'd never felt anything like this at any point in time, and had never believed 100% in ghosts or even life after death. But in some instances, I felt genuine fear at who was standing in that doorway. I kept the experience to myself as I didn't want to cause any unease. But after my mother moved out of the property, I asked if she'd ever felt anything or experienced anything strange. Before I could even continue, she told me that somebody was standing at the door in the kitchen, watching when she was alone. When she told me to explain the experience, it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I think she was also glad to know it wasn't just her. I'm sure my house is haunted. For a bit of context, I've always been a very sensitive person to all kinds of sensations and situations. With this, I mean I perceive many things that others can't. Whether it's sounds, colors, smells, physical contact, and no matter how light it is, etc. And I also have very good peripheral vision, so when something out of the ordinary happens to me, I notice it very quickly, and I don't let it go easily. A few years ago, I moved with my parents and my younger siblings to a bigger house, since we're a large family and we needed the space, but we don't have much money. So my parents decided to buy an old house to slowly renovate it. In our previous house, it is true that I always noticed strange and paranormal things, like things moving on their own, waking up to human shadows watching me sleep, and even the sensation of cold, bony hands caressing my hair during the night. But for some reason, I never felt unsafe in that house. On the contrary, whenever something like that happened to me, I would just relax. This, as the scaredy cat kid I was, and even a friend of my parents who was a medium once told me that I was very lucky to be so well taken care of. And although she didn't say it directly, I know perfectly she wasn't talking about my parents. But when we moved in, everything changed for the bad. From day one, I never felt 100% comfortable in the house. There were Christian symbols everywhere, and although this may have been just my paranoia, I always felt like the eyes in Jesus' photo were following me until we got rid of them. There's one part of the house, specifically a downstairs closet, that has always terrified me. There's no specific reason, it's just that the vibes have always seemed really off to me in that specific spot. The first truly paranormal experience that happened to me in that house wasn't directly to me, but to my little sisters. I was in my room upstairs with my headphones on. That's when suddenly I heard my sisters scream like never before. As soon as I heard it, I ran out of my room and ran down the stairs in 2 strides to reach them. They were locked inside the room next to that same closet I hated. They were completely terrified, hugging each other on the floor in the corner furthest from the door. When they saw me, they ran to me crying and told me that they were planning when suddenly they heard a voice shouting something to them. The door slammed shut. There was no window open at that time, so it couldn't be the wind. I had heard that slam and it had shaken the whole house. But since my father was working on renovations those days, I thought it would be him working. Since that day, I've been much more aware of the things around in this house, and I've been able to notice many things that until then I hadn't noticed or had blamed on my family or the next-door neighbors. Since our houses are wall-to-wall with a lot of these things in the time, I can kind of hear what they're doing. But I started to realize that the footsteps I often heard and the times the hairdryer turned on in the bathroom when I was home alone were coming from inside my house, not from my neighbors. I was also able to confirm that the times I heard people calling my name when I was alone weren't my imagination either. And I have a pretty unusual name, so every time I hear it, I can be sure it's meant for me. And while in the other house I felt comfortable and safe, and here I only feel great discomfort and often fear. The most recent thing that happened to me was a few days ago. I was alone at home with my cat. I was upstairs with my cat looking for her. It was 11 a.m. and it was a sunny day. When I finally found my cat, I started walking to my room knowing that she would follow me. Pretty much like always, to spend time together. But I went in and she didn't come in too, so I went back out to the hallway to see what happened to her. And when I saw her, she was tense, staring at something at the bottom of the stairs, starting to hiss. When I looked in the same direction, what I saw was a human shadow, about 6 feet tall, just standing there. It was sunny, so I could see it clearly. It wasn't a person, it was clearly a human figure, faceless black shadow. Can't describe it in words, the feeling that ran through my body at that moment. Immediately picked up my cat in my arms and locked myself in my room with her, just pretending I hadn't seen anything, hoping that whatever it was wouldn't notice that I saw it. Then I started to hear footsteps coming up the stairs slowly. I blocked the door as best as I could and remained completely silent, not leaving until my family returned. The night before, I had already woken up in the middle of the night because I heard knocking and footsteps in the kitchen downstairs. The footsteps sounded exactly like a horse's hooves. It went on for about 15 minutes since I woke up. So when this happened to me in the morning, it was the last straw. I've tried to talk to my parents and explain to them everything that's happening, but even though they don't have logical answers to all of this, they refuse to believe me. But I know they're scared too, at the way they always dismiss it nervously every time something else happens. I'm still living with my parents because I want to focus on my studies, but if things get worse, I'll move out because I'm feeling worse and worse. It's not just the creepiness of the situation. I've never been so sick since I moved here. I'm talking about almost never getting sick to being sick almost all the time for some reason. Can't seem to find why. Not just me. My little siblings and parents too. Mount Baldy Mysterious Sighting. For many years, I've been trying to understand a very strange encounter I had on Mount Baldy in Southern California. Hoping somebody here might at least have some insights or even similar experiences to share, particularly if they also happened on Mount Baldy. This occurred around 2004, between approximately 9 p.m. and midnight. A friend and I had driven up to Mount Baldy to enjoy the nighttime view of the city lights, which is quite spectacular from that vantage point. I was very familiar with the area, as Mount Baldy was one of my favorite places to hang out. We pulled over and parked in one of the safe viewing areas about halfway up the mountain. After getting out of the car, we stood there chatting and looked at the city lights below. About 15 minutes into our conversation, we began to hear a rhythmic thump-thump-thump. It sounded like extremely heavy and loud footsteps, and with each step the ground beneath us vibrated noticeably. We both turned to see what it was, but there was nothing there. We didn't mention it to each other at the time and continued talking. About 30 seconds later, we heard the same heavy footsteps again. The ground vibrated with each step. And this time we both turned and saw something that made no sense. Walking slowly in front of us was a small figure, probably less than 4 feet tall. It appeared to be naked and completely bald. And what was so bizarre was that every single step it took was incredibly loud. The ground shook visibly with each footfall. It also became eerily quiet. Except for the sounds of the footfalls, I knew instantly that it wasn't human. Throughout the entire sighting, the figure stared straight ahead, never once looking in our direction. Both my friend and I were completely shocked. Just as we were trying to process what we were seeing, a truck drove by, and the strange figure disappeared behind a bush. My friend and I looked at each other, and without saying a word, we jumped back into our car and drove down the mountain as fast as we could. We didn't speak until we reached the city. I asked my friend if he had seen what I had. and he confirmed that he'd been freaking out but tried to stay calm because I was driving. I'm really hoping somebody might have an explanation for what we witnessed. I've had experiences with what I believe were ghosts or spirits before, but this felt entirely different. And when I've tried to research unusual sightings on Mount Baldy, I've mostly come across numerous accounts of ghost sightings, which the area is apparently quite known for due to the many deaths and missing hikers. Has anybody else seen anything similar, especially on Mount Baldy? Any theories or shared experiences would be greatly appreciated, as I've been trying to make sense of this for years. My husband's aunt died in her home. I don't think she left. Husband's aunt died in her house, and his dad with dementia have tossed her ashes in the trash by mistake. Yikes. Aunt's spirit never left and walks around from the living room toward the dining area. Is she mad about her remains, or is there another reason? Mother-in-law sees her too and only occurs at night. For context, circa 2023, my husband's paternal aunt passed away from dementia. He and his family tried placing her in a home due to both his parents being disabled and him working full-time. Well, long story short, she was able to pass away peacefully with the help of the nurse and support from social services giving us resources. She would pass away outside of my husband's childhood bedroom. She was placed in the living room right next to and sort of outside his room. A little bit after she passed away, she was cremated, and soon after my father-in-law was now in the early stages of dementia. Father-in-law placed her ashes outside on top of a trash bin, so she'll never feel alone. We think he threw away her ashes because we can't find them. We're hoping that he didn't, but if he did, there's nothing we can do. Him throwing away the ashes away wasn't with maliciousness, but more of a dementia fluke in early stages of 1 or 2. Gecko disagrees. Cut to 2024 and 2025. I used to work swing shift at a group home for at-risk youth. I would clock out at about 11 p.m. and would get home close to midnight. Mother-in-law would leave me a plate of food to eat since I couldn't eat dinner with them. We live in a mobile home, so we have an open concept kind of home. I'd go into the kitchen, grab my plate, and out of the corner of my eye, I'd see a figure in a white gown walk from the living room near my husband's room toward the dining area. It's right next to the kitchen. I jumped, grabbed my food, and I sped walk to my room. This would become a regular occurrence for me and my mother-in-law, so where a figure would walk the same path at night, minimal lighting or no lighting. The first time I experienced this truly was when hubby, then boyfriend, was making us dinner late at night. We were talking and he left the kitchen for a brief moment and the figure appeared and walked by. I thought it was my boyfriend, so when I peeked to see around the corner, he was behind me asking what I was doing. I asked if he went toward the other living room outside his old bedroom and he said he didn't. So far as Mom and I see the figure, it's late at night in the dark and I don't think my husband's aunt left. Wondering if she's here because of her remains are being thrown out mistakenly, or another reason. What do you guys think? I got all kinds of opinions about remains, but that will remain for later. See ya.